All right, so here's Mika's video, and it's over 2 sessions. I just kind of put in like little snippets of everything we worked on. Otherwise, it would be like 2 hours long. So I cut it down to 12 minutes. But this was the very first day, and we worked on just like our basic communication and like trust between me and her, and making sure she knew what I was saying and what she was working for, and that, she would get what she kind of wanted if she just had some like follow through for me. So in this exercise, she wanted to look out the door. She wants to go out the door realistically, but we're not there yet. So I just have her wait, and I'm using communication signals such as wait. Yes, when she's doing good, I say good as well. And then I'll say okay to release her. If she goes to move forward towards the door before I've released her, I'll give like a or a no, and I'll close the door. So the resource in this scenario is the outside area. She did not want to take treats in the first few minutes. She was too stressed. So I am just kind of using the door as a reward and making it more of a game than anything else. So we get to the point where she could get all the way up, and she's really starting to understand what I'm saying. So then I make it a little bit harder, and I use the front lobby door. So where all this comes in is like we're kind of laying out the foundation work of communication so that when we are in those tricky situations, which you'll see we'll get to, she has some sort of understanding when I start to give her signals of what she's doing right and what she's doing wrong. So the stress level when we step into the lobby escalates. So there is a little bit more physical feedback with the leash. So if she does not move with me when I move away, I'll give a and like a pop on the leash, like right there. When she starts to just flow with me, good girl, no pops on the leash. She is taking cookies now, so I'll reward her. So I'm really just establishing to her that like when we're out and about, like I'll tell you what to do. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to control the situation, as well as I'm working on with her not pulling on the leash. So she gets to the point where she's doing really awesome. She's moving with me. I start to layer in making things harder, opening the door. Somebody had come out of that back door, like you saw. So I managed by making the leash real short and then having her close to me. So she's starting to really understand. So if you notice the body language change too, the confidence is a little bit more there. She's panting a lot, she's taking more cookies, but when you have understanding with a dog like this, like look how solid these sits are. And then when I asked her to come, she's like, "Oh, okay, I get what you're saying." So, once we get comfortable there, I wanted to make it much harder and take her on a journey. So I take her over to the gas station that's across the way. I wanted to see how these communication signals start to apply to the outside world. You could see immediately stepping out of the doorway, her stress level re escalates. So that's this head darting around. She's wanting to duck and hide behind me almost. The pulling is from her being both excitable as well as like very nervous and panicked. So you'll see me check her on the leash like that a few times because what's happening is her brain is just kind of like spiraling out of control. And the leash needs to be this signal of like, hey, you're going too far. You're panicking too much. Just take it easy. Stay here with me and I'll tell you what to do. So walking really good here. Still a little tense, but engaged, which I love. When the dog starts to understand, like, okay, as long as I walk with you, we're good. So we come up to the gas station, and I always have the same protocol with the gas station. I always have the dog sit right under this little mini mall area, and then I start to kind of weave through the gas station area with this sitting spot always where we come back to. So what it does for the dog is it's like, okay, here's this difficult situation. There's going to be people, there's going to be noises. At one point, someone rolled up with like a really loud car and it just spooked her. But we have this situation that seems really chaotic for the dog, but we always have this one place that we're going to go back to and make it consistent. So I start really small. I go just around like that first little gas pump. And then we come back to the sitting area and I have her sit. And at first, you'll see too, at first she's too stressed to really like pay attention or take cues. So I use my finger to kind of prompt for her bottom to sit down. And you'll see over time when I start to say sit, once we get back to this spot, she's like, okay, I'll sit. So again, the body language, she's a little tense. People are walking by. She gets kind of stuck on them. I ask for the sit and she sits politely. And so at this point there's this lady like packing, or she was traveling or something. And there was a gentleman in that car as well. Mika does seem to be a little bit more like responsive or spooked to gentlemen. So there's a few people kind of around this area. So I just start to kind of take her through and around. And I wanted to see when she starts to stare at somebody, I'll kind of give her a little pop on the leash, tell her no, and continue moving. And so here you'll see when I ask for the sit, she doesn't need any prompts. She just sits. So that understanding and confidence is coming through there. But when she's kind of like staring at someone or maybe just getting a little too intent on them, I'll give her that like pop, no. Okay. So that's where all that foundation work came into play, because when we were working the doorway, I said no when she was moving forward and then the door closed. So it was like, no, that's not what I want. Consequence. So now that she has that understanding, you can apply it with this leash stuff. So there's the really loud car that really spooked her. It's that white Crown Victoria. And so I walked her around it. I walked her like right into the situation. It was really loud behind the back of the car. And she did really awesome. And even when she is kind of panicked and she wants to like pull a head forward, she doesn't still. Like you could see the leash is still nice and loose. Definitely stressed, but came right back to the spot and sat. And that's exactly what I'm looking for a dog like this. Like the stress isn't just going to dissipate and she'll know what to do, but at least she has a little bit of understanding of what her job is, regardless of the stress. So this footage is coming into our second session. She is definitely a lot more engaged in this session. Like even when I pulled her right into the room, she was happy. She was like, she seemed like she kind of knew we were there to work. And you can see even through this, like how much she's like looking at me for guidance. Like even when we're walking those little side check-ins. So I kind of took her into the lobby and I took her into the back and I started to do some work with another dog to see how she would respond to that. So in this footage, you'll see a lot of the staring thing I was talking about when it comes to the gas station. So as we're moving around, she starts to kind of hone in on the other dog, like all these little moments right there. She does this little like lean in, and that is where I'll kind of like pop her, tell her no. Like right there, she goes to like move across and move forward and sniff this dog. She's real curious about the dog. And so that's why I just kind of had her sit. I want her to look that it's, it's not threatening. It's not menacing. Right there, you'll see she was doing a lot of like looking and ducking. So I checked her there. My mission in moments like this are if I tell her no, or I tell her sit, or I tell her hey, to get her to check in with me, that she will do it on her own and check in and break away from whatever is disturbing her. This applies to people. It applies to other animals. It applies to like anything she may want to chase after. And she does really well, with this little dog. So, I have them walk behind us because that usually is real spooky and scary. You could see now that once I pause, she is sitting. She is kind of still looking. She doesn't really know what to make of all of this. And she turns to keep her attention on them. So I kind of pull her back towards me. Another person comes into the area and she just becomes pretty flustered. She doesn't really know which one to stare at more. But I just still run through the process. You want to think with a dog like her, even though there's all these elements going on, the expectation is still the same. If I ask you to sit, sit. If I'm walking forward, you're walking with me. If I ask you to wait, you're waiting. So even though she's a little panicked, and if she doesn't respond to the sit, you can just do that little like poke on the bottom and she gets it pretty good, a little pressure up on the leash, and she'll follow through. I do want to get to the point where we can ask her without doing those little prompts and she will follow through. This last part was one I was very excited about. So there was a lot of gentlemen working at the facility this day, and she is definitely more spooked by big tall guys. So um there's power tool noises happening, there's wind blowing, she's kind of checking everybody out, figuring out what's going on. So I just kind of start doing a little bit of our back and forth that we've been working on. I think this was a point where I was really looking at holding the very end of the leash and seeing if she would follow me like a guide without having to prompt her so much on the leash. And she was doing amazing at it. So once she caught a sniff, that was kind of her big distractor. But other than that, you could see how seamlessly she's kind of moving with me. When I'm taking a turn, she's like, oh, I guess I should go with you. I start to change up some paces and make it really fun for her. And then this last point is really good. I walk her right up to these gentlemen and I ask her to sit. And they're all just still working. They're not looking at her and engaging with her, but she just is sitting and chilling. So overall, we made a ton of progress in these past 2 sessions, and we will set up for next week. My schedule is getting pretty booked up already, so I'll reach out to you and send you this stuff, and then we'll link up about the crate and all that. But I hope this information is really helpful, because seeing it and having it broken down with the body language can help you understand like where and when to kind of give her some sort of communication signals. And that is just what I want you to focus on right now, even if it is just walking her like 2 blocks and really working on this like back and forth and communication stuff. She'll get plenty tired. You don't need to go on like a 5-mile hike. All of this is going to get like totally washed away with each new like corner you guys take. So really practice the foundational stuff if you have the time and you are taking her on walks. That is more important at this stage of the game. And then long-term goals is like doing just regular walks. But we got to break down this psychology and stuff for her more so. So I hope you're having a great day wherever you're watching this from, and I will talk to you soon.